The Black Mountain boulder frog is a unique species of microhylid frog found only on one mountain just south of Cooktown. It has no tadpole stage, and little frogs develop in eggs which are attached to the boulders which make up its mountain habitat. Over a 20-hour drive from where I live, it's not often that I get the chance to look for them. In the past, I've tried and failed to find these frogs on 3 previous visits to this mountain. On my first trip to this location in 2020, we arrived at Black Mountain to thick smoke. The mountain had been on fire. There were some reptiles out, but not a single amphibian was to be found.
Oh, you smell it, it's fresh.
We tried to look for these frogs again on the way back on the same trip, but conditions were very similar. We just couldn't find any frogs. We were able to find some other cool animals around, like this giant scrub python, which was really impressive to see. In 2023, I got to visit the site again, and I was hoping this time I'd be in time for the spring rains, but they hadn't come yet. But at least the mountain wasn't on fire this time. But even climbing down inside the mountain proved fruitless. I just couldn't find this frog anywhere. So it was with a sense of excitement and expectation that we started on this trip. The wet season had truly begun this time, and Ollie and I were hoping for excellent conditions as we embarked on our first 13 hours of our journey with the goal to stop at Paluma Range for the first night.
Right, I'm stoked.
Right, we've made it to Townsville.
It was good to finally get out of the car and stretch our legs. We decided to do a rainforest walk on the mountain to see what we could find. Like usual, the wet tropics did not disappoint, and the forest was teeming with life. The forest was full of microhylids cooling. These are robust whistling frogs. They have a beautiful bird-like call that sings through the darkness. The other microhylid frog from this forest are these little southern ornate nursery frogs cooling from perches low down in the trees. We decided to leave the rainforest and drive down the western side of the mountain to search for the frog we had actually come to this place to find. There were records of Little John's toadlets on the western flats. As we were driving, we stopped for this massive 3.5 meter scrub python crossing the road. Once we reached the western flats, we heard the subtle call of euparolias through the window. They were difficult to find, but with a little bit of persistence, we found what we thought were our targets, Little John's toadlets. However, as we spent more time with them, we began to question our initial identification. We took some call recordings, and we later concluded that these are a very similar species, montane toadlets. But still, very happy to get some photographs of these frogs. We decided to head back into the range because Ollie hadn't seen waterfall frogs before, and we didn't know if we would have another opportunity on this trip. So we went in search of waterfalls to see if we could find any of these endangered frogs. This species of frog has suffered declines, especially in our upland region of their habitat between 800 metres and 1300 metres. They inhabit the splash zones of waterfalls and turbulent rocky creeks. Their tadpoles are streamlined and have excellent suction and powerful tails to maintain grip in rapidly flowing water. In the morning I went to get some habitat shots of the waterfall frogs, and we had a look at some of the local bird life before we started our next long drive to the Cooktown region. Just outside Cardwell, we saw an injured kingfisher on the side of the road. We couldn't just leave it there, and we were able to bring this bird to a vet in Tully for care. With that little detour out the way, we continued into the Atherton Range.
Well, I feel nervous about this one. This is the fourth time I've tried to get Saxatilis.
Discussion around various amphibians and reptiles continued, and Ollie expressed interest in seeing Serranoscincus frontalis. We just so happened to be passing a place I'd seen these before, so we decided to stop in and try our luck.
Stopped for an opportunistic lizard flip here.
Although we didn't find any of the skinks Ollie wanted to see, we did find a few prickly forest skinks. These are a remarkable lizard, endemic to the wet tropics and the only member of their genus. It wasn't long before we were rained out and we had to head back to the car, trying to keep our camera equipment dry.
Well, rain came.
It's pretty wet.
Impressive.
Well, we've made it to Black Mountain again. There's thunder. Hasn't had much rain, but I can tell it's had a sprinkling of rain. We're in the wet season, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, tonight will be the night I finally see the Black Mountain boulder frogs.
Due to the remarkable geology of Black Mountain, it has sheltered 3 animals found nowhere else in the world. This is the Black Mountain boulder skink, which can be seen running around on the granite boulders during the day. As Ollie and I waited for night to fall to bring out the nocturnal animals, we noticed a storm cell approaching, and before long, the sky opened up again. According to the radar, there were more storms coming in behind, but after a little while of rain, it eased up, and we had a short window to get down and search for the frog that we came so far to see in the most perfect frog conditions possible. And sure enough, they were everywhere on the boulders. The females were large and bright yellow, and the males were small and camouflaged well on the boulders. And I was stoked to be able to finally see these incredible animals. before the rain started up again, we were able to see some of the Black Mountain geckos, the third endemic of Black Mountain. And as the next storm blew in, we drove around for a celebratory pizza at the Lion's Den Hotel, which I would give 5 stars to, by the way. Look how happy Ollie is. But our night wasn't over yet. We had another elusive target to find. So, leaving the pub, we headed down in the rain to Cedars Bay in search of another microhylid frog, the northern tapping nursery frog, Caphixilus exegus. This frog had also eluded me on multiple attempts to find it, but tonight, conditions were good. We arrived to our frog location to the wonderful sound of microhylid frogs. Prize frogs were whistling through the forest, loud and clear. As we continued to scout around, photographing other frogs and wildlife we could find, we heard, what we came here to see, the distinctive clicks of the northern tapping nursery frog. It was tiny. It was so cool to see this frog. We woke up in the morning to the gorgeous rainforest of Cedar Bay. We still had 2 nights left, and our next stop was Mossman Gorge. This was going to be the shortest drive of our whole trip, so we filled it out by stopping wherever we wanted to climb hills or photograph dragonflies in roadside puddles. We arrived in Mossman in time to go for a swim and meet some of the great locals before heading into the gorge in search of the buzzing nursery frog, Caphixilus bombians. As darkness fell, we heard one calling from the lawyer vine, but that was the only sign of this frog we heard all night. So we set out on the walking track to see what else we could find. Even though we didn't find the frog we were looking for, it was amazing to see these totally unique chameleon geckos. They're the only member of their whole genus. And like all geckos, they drop their tails. But unlike any other gecko in the world, their tails make a squeaking sound when they drop them. We decided to knock a couple of hours drive off our trip the next day, and we went south of Cairns and set up camp for the night. Every morning on this trip so far, we had heard superb fruit doves, and we really wanted to see them. But what I wanted to do more was get a video of Ollie making the bird call, because he was really good at it. But he always saw my camera and never did it when the camera was rolling. But this morning, we got a photo of one. It's a really good photo. I might enter it into National Geographic competition. Don't know yet. By that afternoon, we were in the dense rainforest of the Yungala Range, being serenaded by the Yungala tinker frogs. But they weren't what we had come here to find. Tonight's main target was the Yungala spiny crayfish. This is an endangered crayfish only found in high altitude streams in this range. These crayfish are poorly known and poorly documented. There aren't even many photos of them in circulation. Like most of the Euasticus crayfish, these are narrow-ranged endemics restricted to this mountain range above 600 meters altitude. We were finding mostly young adults, and they can dig burrows of up to nearly 2.5 meters deep and can live for 25 to 30 years. Leaving the crayfish, we had a search for the tinker frogs, and even though we saw a couple, they were very elusive and we didn't get any photos of them this time. But we did find the incredible Yungala broad-tailed gecko, which is restricted to this rainforest of the Clark Range. We went down to one of the main creek lines in search of the Yungala day frog, another special frog endemic to this area. On the way, we found the most monstrous cane toad we'd ever seen. Sleeping lemon-barred forest skinks adorn the rocks of the creek line like Christmas ornaments. But finally, we found it. The critically endangered Yungala day frog. These frogs have a very soft call and have been recorded signalling to one another by waving their hands and their feet. Thought to be extinct until its rediscovery in the early 90s, there are signs that suggest these frogs are beginning to bounce back. Thanks for watching this one right to the end, guys. It was a lot of fun to reminisce on this trip, and finding Caphixilus exeges was a milestone for me. Seeing that one meant I'd been able to observe half of all Australian frogs in the wild. So until next time, stay tuned.